So let me tell you just a bit about what I'm doing in the project. So you know that I'm writing the white paper. The first line in the white paper, as of now, says that Tau is a decentralized self-amending platform, a technology that allows a computer program to change based on the collective decisions of its many users. This is very broad. In the white paper, we talk about different aspects of this thing. What I would like to introduce you to, and perhaps you have heard it already through the talks with Ohad, about if you were to describe the system very concisely, what would you say is the Tau? Now, in mathematics, if we have a system and we want to describe it, in all formal systems, we start with the axioms. And then we can basically argue whether or not the axioms truly accurately describe the reality. So in much the same way, we are looking for the axiom of the Tau system. Now, you can say that the Tau can do many things, and perhaps this broad definition doesn't really highlight what are the core bases for such a system. It sounds like you have a system that can do anything for you. On the surface, Tau is a social choice-based platform, but the social choice and the scaling of discussions really come to support the aspect of collaboration. And the aspect of collaboration come to support the core thing, which is self-amendment or change. So we can say that basically in reality, change is perhaps the only constant. And here the same, we have a system, and part of the system are the users, and the system should change over time. Now this leads, as we know, also in mathematics and computer science, this implies recursion, and we know that if the system is complete, then this leads to paradoxes. Now, the idea behind the Tau is that based on the axioms of the system, which I'm going to provide in a minute, based on these axioms, it basically delineates a specific logic that avoids the paradoxes of self-reference. Okay, so we've talked about the law of laws, and the idea is that you have three axioms that allows you basically to do and to realize the Tau system. And these axioms are recursion and retraction and decidability. Okay, so let me just explain what this means. First of all, recursion talks about law of changing laws. So you have a law and you want to change it. So you need a law of higher level, and so on. Eventually you come up with the idea that you need an unbounded recursion. Now, this is the first axiom. The second one is retraction. So we mentioned that yesterday, that you would like at some point perhaps when a law is no longer applicable or is not realizable or is not moral or whatever, you wish to retract it. So this implies basically that you live in a non-monotonic world, and this basically we're talking about non-monotonic logic. So you would like to retract the law. So this is the second axiom. The third one is about decidability, because eventually you would like to get a verdict whether this law really gives you the value that it promised, and eventually you would like to turn it into an action. Okay, so you need it to be decidable. The system's supposed to be decidable. So these three axioms delineate a particular logic. The recursion tells us that we need a fixed point in the logic. Then we have the retraction, which says that, okay, it's supposed to be also non-monotonic. So this leads us to something like partial fixed point. And eventually we have decidability, and that tells you that the logic is supposed to be definable on finite structures. Okay, so we come to the point where we know that we're supposed to have partial fixed point on finite structures, and this is what the TML is doing. Now, recently we thought about perhaps looking at it from a different angle, and then we basically formulated the calculus of laws. We're still working on it. It's in preparation. And the calculus of morals. Now, morals and law are two different things. While morals are about what is right and what is wrong, laws are basically social agreements. Eventually, we know that in our world, people have traded laws for morals, or morals for laws. Perhaps more of the latter than the former, So what Tao is about is basically if everything will work fine in the system and, we have the first users and then the system can grow and evolve because of the self-amendment thing and all this logic that we have. Eventually, we can get a system in which morals equals laws. Okay, so if you take a look at the three axioms, if you want to get the three axioms from calculus of morals, you would see the following thing, that for morals, for a thing to be moral, you have to approach it through negation. That means that you have to remove all that is immoral from it. So this corresponds to the law of retraction, the axiom of retraction. The other thing is that if you wish to evolve and to add more laws to the systems, then you would have to decide whether or not what you are going to add is moral or not. Okay, so this basically corresponds to the second axiom of decidability. And eventually, you will have a lot of laws, and some of the laws can be such that they will attest on their own morals. And eventually, you get this self-referential process again, and you would like it to converge eventually. And that means that the law becomes a moral, because when a moral attests to its own moral, as being moral, it will be just the same. So this is just another way of looking at how to get these three axioms. So I know it sounds very philosophical, but eventually the system that we are developing from a theoretical aspect is a mathematical formal system. So it's supposed to be well-defined with the axioms and then all the consequences that comes over, and eventually we get the practical system that's supposed to work. So this is from the research aspect. I just will summarize it now. We have a system that's supposed to be self-referential, self-amendment. Eventually it's like a culture that will evolve, and culture that reflects on itself and then evolves with time. And in this culture we have constituents, which are the users that basically define the system. They are part of the system. There is no duality, in which you basically separate the users from the system. And this whole thing is supposed to work, and that means that the user is supposed to collaborate and discuss what are the laws that eventually will drive the system. So for that they will need discussion, and they will need a platform that will allow them to choose what to choose over, which is we have nothing at the moment, and no such system really exists at the moment. So that's it. Perhaps Ohad would like to comment about what I said. This is basically my views of what the Tao is. And I would like to end my recording with a koan. So this is very interesting, and I find it very much connected to what we are doing and self-reference in particular. So a koan is a small parable that Taoists use to enlighten the students. So it says the following thing. A man decided to go and study with a master. He went to the door of the master. "Who are you who wishes to study here?" asked the master. The student told the master his name. "That is not who you are. That is only that you are called. Who are you who wishes to study here?" he asked again. The man thought for a moment and replied, "I am a professor." "That is what you do, not who you are," replied the master. "Who are you who wishes to study here?" Confused, the man thought some more. Finally he answered, "I am a human being. That is only your species, not who you are." "Who are you who wishes to study here?" asked the master again. After a moment of thought, the professor replied, "I am a consciousness inhabiting an arbitrary body. That is merely what you are, not who you are. Who are you who wishes to study here?" The man was getting irritated. "I am," he started, but he could not think of anything else to say, so he trailed off. After a long pause, the master replied, "Then you are welcome to come study." So eventually he reached the fixed point. this man. And the fixed point is the I am, and no other description, because I am completely describes I am. Okay, thank you guys. Cheers.
Thank you very much, and hello everyone. Not too much to say. I've been involved in everything you hear here, and of course beyond. There's a lot going on. To comment to Professor Carmi's request about what he said, I would just add that one of the main differences between morals and laws, as I see them, is that morals are coming from the individual point of view, while laws are a thing of the society. And as Professor Carmi said, in Tao, the law and morality get closer. Indeed, because who gets to set the law on Tao? The users themselves, and each user they have their own worldview. In other words, this is their moral values. And by that, we can get maybe for the first time a law that comes from the moral values of the majority, and not as we see right now, laws that contradict the moral values of the people. I will just add that I will conclude with saying for the progress from my side, we spoke about a system of equations, and Professor Carmi spoke about axiomatization of Tao. Beyond the axiomatization that we already have, you already know about the laws of laws, which are axiomatization of the language to describe Tao itself, and also the axioms of the Internet of Languages, and TML happened to fulfill them both. And from the system of equations design that I've been speaking about in the last updates, we would like this design to be compatible with the grand scheme of things. Once we axiomatize Tau, well, we already did, but we want to add more to it. We will then want to be able to write those axioms in the way of system of equations that we want to make support to now, that we work on supporting. And by that, a larger part of the picture will come under the system of equations design. And that's all for now.